My name is Dania Morales and I am 57 years old. That night in Charleston, the air carried the sweet, heavy dampness that whispers winter is coming. I arrived at the Whitby mansion carrying a basket overflowing with white camellias, pale roses and glossy magnolia leaves I had gathered and arranged myself that morning from my own garden. A gift for my daughter Lorena's engagement dinner. She always said no one could make a table glow quite like I could. A butler took the basket and paused just a second too long at the embroidered name on my jacket, Dicino Floral Morales. The courtyard shimmered with candles and crystal. Polished laughter floated between the tables like a breeze. I caught fragments. Old family names, property values, trips abroad. Someone murmured as I passed, "The florist." Lorena hurried over in a champagne-colored silk dress, kissed my cheek quickly and carefully so her lipstick wouldn't smudge. "Mom, I'm so glad you're early," she said, eyes already scanning over my shoulder for someone more important. "You look beautiful. I brought these for the table." "They're perfect," she answered, but her gaze had locked on Margarita Whitby, her future mother-in-law, standing near the head table in pearls and perfect posture. Margarita's smile was small, polite, the kind that never reaches the eyes. Dinner began with toast. Salvador thanked both families for coming together. Margarita thanked everyone for helping shape the next generation. My name was never mentioned. I sipped my wine, steadying my breathing, reminding myself the night belonged to Lorena. When the main course arrived, I slipped into the chair beside my daughter, the one I had always taken at every family dinner we ever shared. For one heartbeat I thought things could still feel like ours. Then she leaned close and whispered so only I could hear, "Mom, that seat is for my mother-in-law." I must have misheard. The music had gone quiet. The clink of silverware stopped. "What did you say?" "Please," she pressed, voice tight. "Stand up. She's supposed to sit there." Lorena had already arranged the places, and Margarita Whitby had kindly indicated her preferred seating, leaving no room for me in the spot that had always been mine. Before I could answer, her hand pressed my shoulder. A firm push, not violent but final. My chair scraped across the stone floor. A glass toppled and shattered against the bricks. Every head turned. Cold rushed up my arms. I caught my balance and rose slowly. Margarita glided forward, murmuring something about how these little accidents happen as if it were nothing. Lorena's face was pale and shining under the string lights. "Mom, please just," she whispered. I found my voice, thin but steady. "It's fine," I said. Someone gestured to another chair. I waved it away. I stood until the laughter returned, softer now, and no one looked at me anymore. When the music started again, I walked out through the garden gate, the scent of my own flowers trailing behind me into the night. The cobblestones were slick under my shoes. I kept walking toward the car, one hand pressed to my chest, trying to remember exactly when love had started to feel like shame. The road out of downtown Charleston was almost empty. I kept both hands on the wheel as the Cooper River Bridge rose ahead of me, a white arch slicing the darkness. Headlights trembled on the water below, blurred by tears I refused to wipe away. I drove with the window cracked, letting the cold wind sting my face until it felt almost clean. Lorena's whisper kept repeating in my head, soft but sharp. "That seat is for my mother-in-law." When I reached my house in the old neighborhood, the street was silent. The porch light glowed faintly. I had left it on, expecting to come home with stories, maybe a photo from the engagement dinner. Instead, I walked in carrying nothing but the smell of spilled wine on my sleeve. I dropped my purse and went straight to the kitchen table. The envelope was still there, exactly where I had left it that morning. Cream paper tied with gold ribbon marked for Lorena's future. Inside were the savings I had scraped together for years. Every overtime check, every repair I postponed, every penny counted with a mother's hope. I untied the ribbon and looked at the neat stacks of bills, proof of a life measured in sacrifice. My hands began to shake. "Everything I did was for you," I said to the empty room. My voice no longer sounded like mine. The heater kicked on, breaking the silence. I folded the envelope closed. I realized it wasn't money I had been saving. It was a place in her life. And that night she had given it away. I was 29 when I buried my husband. The funeral lilies came from a wholesaler in Savannah, and afterward I kept the leftover stems in buckets behind the house. That's how the business began. A small garage full of borrowed vases and one woman refusing to collapse. Lorena used to help me strip leaves after school, humming while I built bouquets for brides I would never meet. When her first college acceptance letter arrived, I cried in the kitchen and told her, "You're going to go further than I ever did." I said it with pride, not prophecy. I paid every tuition myself, arranging flowers until midnight, counting invoices instead of sleep. The shop grew slowly, stubbornly until I could finally hire help. When Lorena graduated, I handed her an envelope with enough for her first apartment and said, "Start clean." She kissed my cheek and promised, "I'm going to make you proud." Years later, when she brought Salvador home, she seemed nervous. He was polite, with the kind of smile you practice in mirrors. His mother, Margarita Whitby, came for tea the following week, looked around my living room and said, "How charming. You still live near the old market?" "Yes," I replied. "Close to the shop." She smiled without warmth. "How practical." After that, I watched the shift begin. Lorena's voice grew softer, more careful when she spoke to them. She started correcting me. Lunch, not comida, and asked me not to wear work clothes when her friends came over. Once I dropped by her apartment unannounced with a bucket of hydrangeas. She was on the phone. "No, my mom isn't like that," I heard her say. "She's practical." She hung up quickly when she saw me. "Who was that?" "Margarita," she answered. "She says you're admirable." The word hung heavy between us. I smiled anyway because mothers do. I thought I had built a life strong enough to carry her dreams. I never imagined it would carry me away from her. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the table, the lights, the faces, my daughter's hand pressing my shoulder. At midnight, I gave up, turned on the kitchen lamp, and spread out folder after folder. Taxes, contracts, ledgers. 30 years of quiet evidence. Past 1 o'clock, I found it. The business account summary. My eyes stopped on a line I had never questioned. Decino Floral Morales, co-signer, Lorena Morales. I leaned back, staring at the words. When had I done that? Probably the year she finished college, when I was proud and wanted her to feel included. I remembered signing those papers with my old accountant, saying, "She's responsible. She'll take care of things if anything happens to me." I traced my own signature with my thumb. The irony almost made me laugh. I picked up my phone and scrolled to James Carter, accountant. It rang 4 times before his sleepy voice answered. "Dania? Everything okay?" "No," I said quietly. "I need you to freeze every account, every credit line, every authorization tied to Lorena's name. Immediately." He hesitated. "You're sure? That includes the engagement fund transfers?" "I'm sure." Silence, then softly, "Understood. First thing in the morning." After hanging up, I opened the drawer where I kept the key to the old safe and took out my husband's fountain pen. The gold on the cap was worn smooth by his fingers. We had signed our mortgage with it, our first business loan, our daughter's birth certificate. I uncapped it, set the tip to paper, and wrote my name beside a short note to my lawyer. "Revoke all shared authorizations. Immediate execution." The ink bled a little. I let it dry while I stared at the empty chair across from me, the one Lorena used to sit in while I worked late. By 2 a.m. the signatures were done. I stacked the folders neatly, turned off the lamp, and whispered into the dark, "It's time." Morning arrived, gray and cold, the kind of honest Charleston light that hides nothing. I was at my lawyer's office before it officially opened. Linda Briggs had handled my business papers for 15 years. She greeted me with that mix of curiosity and concern reserved for clients who show up without an appointment and without makeup. "Good morning, Dania," she said gently. "You look like you've made a decision." "I have." I placed a folder on her desk, every document flagged with yellow tabs. "I want every shared authorization revoked. Power of attorney, co-signatures, anything tying my accounts or assets to my daughter's name." Linda adjusted her glasses. "That includes the expansion fund for the engagement venue. You personally guaranteed those payments." "I know," I said. "Cancel them." She studied me for a moment, pen resting on the desk. "You know this will have a domino effect. Contracts, credit, vendors. Once your guarantees are gone, everything built on them collapses. That's the idea." She nodded once, understanding, and began drafting the revocation forms. The printer hummed in the silence. When I signed the last page, she said quietly, "You've been a good mother, Dania. Don't let this make you doubt it." "I'm not doubting," I replied. I'm done begging. From there I walked 2 blocks to James Carter's office. He was waiting, looking tired. You weren't joking last night, he said, sliding a stack of printouts across the desk. I never joke about this, I answered. He pointed to the top page. The engagement fund you set up is backed by your company line of credit. Salvador's family business took out a bridge loan using it as collateral. Something clicked into place inside me like the last piece of a puzzle. So their celebration is hanging on my name. Exactly. Remove it, I ordered. He blinked. That voids the loan. Good. He hesitated again. Sure you don't want to warn her? I looked out the window at the steady flow of people on the wide street, all heading into their ordinary mornings, unaware that one quiet decision could flip a life upside down. My daughter wanted independence, I said. Now she has it. James didn't argue. He typed the final commands and hit confirm. When the computer beeped, I felt no triumph, no revenge, just stillness. I gathered my papers, signed the release form, and walked out without looking back. By the next morning, the decisions were sealed in courier envelopes addressed to my lawyer and accountant. Only one remained, for Lorena. I wrote her name carefully on the front. Inside, I placed a folded note and a bank receipt showing the closure of our joint account. The paper weighed more than it should. The note read, "You took my seat. Now stand on your own." I sealed it before I could change my mind. Outside, the air smelled of salt and light rain. A delivery truck idled at the curb. The driver, a young guy with tired eyes, leaned out. "Pick up for Morales?" I handed him both envelopes. "Out today. No delays." He nodded, sensing something private he shouldn't ask. When he drove off, I stood on the sidewalk a long time, listening to the city wake. Traffic, gulls, the dull rhythm of another day beginning without me in it for the first time in years. My shoulders dropped, the weight slipping away inch by inch. I turned toward the waterfront, took a deep breath, and whispered, "That's enough." Then I started walking. By noon, the storm had found them. The first voicemail from Lorena came while I was pruning azaleas behind the shop. Her voice was tight, brittle. "Mom, something's wrong with the venue payment. They say the account is frozen. Call me." The second came minutes later, sharper. "Did you change something? They say the flower deposit is voided. It's you, isn't it?" By the third, she was crying. I set the phone face down on the counter. Later, James texted, "They won't stop calling. Want me to pick up?" I replied, "No. Let the paper speak." That afternoon, closing the shop, I listened to the rest. Lorena's voice broke between gasps. "Salvador is furious. His mom is here. She said the partnership loan was cancelled because you pulled your guarantee." Her breathing hitched. "She told him you said your mom was sentimental, she was structural." A pause, then a whisper. "Mom, please, don't you understand? Everything is falling apart. The bank has called twice. The planner says we lose the venue if we don't pay tomorrow. Please just talk to me." The next call was from an unknown number. A measured female voice. "This is Margarita Whitby. I believe you're aware of the financial disruption caused to my son's event. It's unfortunate your daughter misrepresented her access to funds. I'll handle things directly now." After a pause, "You raised a clever woman, Dania. But clever is not the same as wise." I didn't reply. By nightfall, the screen showed 47 missed calls. I turned the phone off. That night, I lit a single candle in the kitchen. Not for anyone, just for silence. Through the window, the waterfront lights flickered faintly against the water, steady and patient somewhere across town. The chaos was unraveling, the money evaporating quietly, pride cracking under its own weight. For years I had built my life as the invisible foundation beneath theirs. Now the supports were gone and the structure shook exactly as it should. I washed my hands, wiped the counter, and left the phone in darkness. Tomorrow I thought I would open the shop as always. The flowers would still need tending, the orders would still come. 47 calls could wait. Word traveled fast among vendors and social circles. Whispers became conversations, and soon the local papers picked up the story. In a city built on murmurs, it moved faster than truth. The Whitby engagement party had been cancelled for personal reasons. Vendors muttered about unpaid invoices. The newspaper ran a polite headline: "Prominent family event postponed indefinitely." At the shop, orders doubled. People came curious at first, then stayed for the work itself. Clean lines, fearless color, arrangements that carried a quiet rebellion. One morning a reporter from the Port Courier stopped by. "You're Dania Morales, right? Owner of Flor del Malecon." "That's me." He smiled. "We're doing a feature on local women-owned businesses that survived the pandemic. Your story fits." I almost laughed. "Survived," I repeated. "Yes, that's one word for it." 2 days later the article ran with a photo of me holding late-season camellias. The caption read, "A woman rebuilding beauty from scratch." That same afternoon a friend sent me a screenshot. Lorena had liked the post from her private account. No comment, no message, just a small red heart against white. I stared at it a long time, unsure whether it was regret or understanding. The sun was setting through the shop window, blinding across petals and glass jars. I flipped the sign to closed and whispered, not to her, not to anyone, just to the air, "That's enough." It was late when I saw her car outside the shop, the same silver sedan I had helped her buy years ago. She sat inside a long time before getting out. Hair loose, eyes red. "Mom," she said, voice small. "Please, can I come in?" "The door's open." She hesitated on the threshold as if the air might burn her. "I didn't mean to push you," she whispered. I looked up from the invoices I was sorting. "You wanted to belong," I said evenly. "You just forgot who built your chair." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I lost everything, Mom. The wedding is cancelled. Salvador left. The Whitbys won't even take my calls. I have nowhere to stay." I folded the papers carefully, lining up the corners. "Then maybe you'll find yourself," I said. She sank onto the nearest bench. "You don't even sound angry." I admitted. "For years, I mistook silence for peace. Turns out they're not the same." She stared at the floor. "I thought you'd hate me." "I don't," I said softly. "I just stopped needing you to love me the way I love you." Her shoulders shook. "What am I supposed to do now?" I walked behind the counter. "You start over," I said. "The way I did." I filled the kettle and poured 2 cups. She nodded, hands trembling as she took hers. We drank in silence, steam curling between us like something fragile neither of us wanted to break. When she stood to leave, I walked her to the door. She turned, eyes searching my face for permission, maybe absolution. I reached out and touched her shoulder. Light, almost nothing, but she froze beneath it. "Take care of yourself, Lorena," I said. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Then she stepped out and the door closed softly behind her. The tea was cold when I sat down again. Still, I lifted the cup and finished it. A year later the shop looked nothing like before. The bricks were clean, the old windows replaced with glass that caught the waterfront light. That night I hosted a small charity dinner for the downtown women's shelter. No photographers, no banners, just quiet conversation and candles on borrowed tables. After the guests left, I carried the last tray to the kitchen. The clock above the door read 10. Outside the air was soft and salty. Across the street my neighbor Donna Aldama was watering her porch plants. "You leave that porch light on every night," she called. "Still waiting for someone?" I smiled. "I'm not waiting," I answered. "I'm reminding myself that dignity doesn't beg to be seen." She nodded, understanding more than she said, and went back to her plants. I turned on the porch light. Its glow spilled across the street, pale and steady against the dark. Inside, the shop was quiet. Flowers trimmed, receipts filed, the scent of camellias still floating in the air. I stood in the doorway a moment longer. Then I locked up and walked home under the light I had left burning. Not so someone would find me, but to remember that I had stayed. For recuerdos de Isabel.